Hello, lords and ladies of the internet. I'm the King of Candor. I'm back with episode 19 of the Council of Candor. Today we're going to be talking about Kaiju slash Godzilla in fantasy. And we still have a couple people trickling in. It's been a bit of a weird day. We're going to start with the co-hosts who are currently here. We're waiting for a very special guest. He's currently at the gym getting nice and swole, but let's start with those who are here. First up, Mr. Shadow. How you doing? Welcome back, man.
Oh, hey there. Good to be here. As always, always happy to talk about giant monsters punching each other directly in the face.
Pleasure to have you back, man. And you're an expert in getting punched in the face by giant monsters.
I may know a thing or two about it. I may know a thing or two.
Most often, when we have giant monsters, they destroy LA. And I don't have a really good segue past this. Outside of you should come watch me and him play Baldur's Gate tonight. Mr. Nebula, how are you doing today?
Yeah. Hello. Doing good, doing good. I have my fair share of knowledge about giant monsters and slaying them. Lots of slaying them. Lot of that.
The important
But
part.
yeah, hello. Mhm.
We are, unless his internet breaks again, playing Baldur's Gate again tonight. So please come join us
Yes.
for that.
And it wasn't that it was broken; it was that it wasn't set up yet. Luckily, we got it set
creatively
up just in time.
Excellent. All right. And last but not least, we have our local author, Mr. Pag. You can get his book in the description, by the way.
So true. Let's see. Which one do you have in the description right now? What is it? Is that the newest one?
I believe it's
Scion of the
Scion of the
Void.
Void.
Yeah, yeah. That one's a pretty good one. At least I think it's pretty good. You know. You know. Anyway.
You're
Yeah.
very
So
biased.
yeah,
Okay.
very biased about my own book.
And here he is, chat. It's been 19 episodes that he's been mostly lacking, but we have a special guest today. Mr. Blackaroonie is joining us for his final appearance ever on the internet. He will disappear from the ether. You won, Twitter. You killed him. So come here and yell at me in this channel right now.
Nice. Nice.
Sir.
Oh, hey. It's gonna be exciting, that's all.
It could be very exciting. So, why don't we start today with a little bit of history of Godzilla and Kaiju in general. This has been a topic that I've been researching very heavily lately, trying to understand, right, where do you draw the line for Kaiju? Because Kaiju is a very weird word and an even weirder concept to address. It means like special monster, roughly in English. So when you think that word, this covers basically any kind of humanoid thing. I saw some scholars saying that technically things like a centaur would qualify as a kaiju per just legal definitions. However, they're almost always big things. So dinosaurs would by default be kaijus. Knowing this, it makes it a little bit harder to track when the first kaiju media would have started. Obviously, there's one major thing everybody points to, which is Godzilla. But predecessors to Godzilla include King Kong, The Beast of 20,000 Fathoms, and I think it's Buddha in Tokyo was the name of the movie, which came out like way before all this stuff. And in fact, that movie was promoted as a kaiju film, which is interesting. A lot of people don't have a good enough consensus for me, though. I don't like it. I'm just going to say outright. Now, this is important because I want to have a good definition of what a kaiju piece of media is, because I want to cover it for the next video I'm making. Not the next one. The one coming out in a few days is going to be talking about D&D and how much they suck. But the next video after that is going to be covering the kaijus and their role in fantasy. So, anybody here on the panel have any thoughts about when you would put the line of a kaiju or anything like that, other than maybe saying it's just Godzilla?
It has to be like 15 feet tall at least, and a monster, and that's a kaiju. That's the rules.
If it can
So-
step on you, then it's a kaiju. That's my take.
Yeah, that's fair.
If it can step on you. Well, there's a lot, there's a lot of ways that explicit definition can be modified.
My wife is a kaiju.
Exactly.
I'm sure there's already a manga somewhere or like that.
Oh yeah,
Probably.
I think I've seen a few cover pictures of that kind of thing.
there's
Almost
entire
certainly.
sections of 4chan and DeviantArt dedicated to that.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
boy.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
4chan loves its kaiju women, TM.
yeah, so then you joke, but then there's a legitimate question: is the woman from the Attack of the 50-Foot Women a kaiju?
She's a monster because she's a woman and she's 50 feet tall. So yes, easy.
Hmm.
These questions can be easily answered. In fact, I think we could do this with every monster, and just one by one, you can figure it out. We could hash this out. We can squash this beef right now.
I mean that's not a bad definition. I guess we just need is there like a dictionary? Does Oxford have a definition of what exactly a kaiju is?
It basically
Well,
boils
Oxford is an
down to
English.
Godzilla-like things. That's what it boils down to.
Let's see.
Kaiju is basically Godzilla. And what is Godzilla but a kaiju? It's a very circular definition group we run into.
Well, I guess if that's the case, it would just be any giant monster released after Godzilla. Those are all now defined as kaiju.
And that's what the interesting thing that we came up with. We had this huge debate in my server before the local Brit and the local Frenchman decided to get into a very, very passionate debate over the 100 Years' War. But before then, we pretty much had it nailed down to, yeah, it's a giant monster, but what separates it from a lot of the ancient mythological monsters is they need to be dealing with like modern human cities, either saving them or attacking them from other giant guys. That's what sets them apart from things like the Kraken. And I think it's Babavao is the thing that Gilgamesh goes and fights in the woods. See, Alex Gomez, he asked the question already. Like dragons and trolls, are they kaiju? You see, that's the thing that's interesting. And by the way, yes, you would be an ant, a kaiju to ants, and Ultraman would be a kaiju, I think. Rooney's going to be the expert on that. We're going to talk to him about that more interestingly. But yeah, so I think that most of the ways you would talk about a kaiju have to include some sci-fi elements or science fantasy elements because there's a lot of magic. I talked to one Noob Sunrider, and Noob, if you're out there, thank you for this discussion. You were fantastic with giving me details and such. He really showed me how there's actually a crap ton of magic in Godzilla and kaiju media as a whole. Mothra gets summoned by a bunch of like little girls doing a dance, and now you might say, "What do you mean by little girls?" They're like, Rooney, correct me if I'm wrong. They're like a foot tall.
Well,
Are they like pygmies or like children?
Both.
Sometimes they're depicted as children, sometimes they're depicted as adults. It really depends on the version. I know the Showa era has them be little girls, and the Heisei era has them be like really, really tiny adult women.
but they're always small. That's the point, right?
Yes.
Small thing, attractive
Scientism's
thing.
plus size health is greater than Godzilla. Would she be a kaiju? That's the real question.
She's not giant. So that doesn't count. Yes, D&D Tarrasque's definitely kaiju. Dragons definitely kaiju. Trolls, depending on their depiction, can be kaiju. There's trolls in like the Discworld series where they like grow big enough to be mountains. At that point, that's definitely a kaiju. For sure.
Probably even just like size of a house would be considered kaiju because he said like 15
Yeah.
feet, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and
Something
15
the
feet is
size of
about
a
how big a
house
house is.
unreal.
Yeah.
And
That's
the
true.
and the important thing here, though, to remember is the hostility. This is what sets Clifford apart. So Clifford's not a kaiju; he's just a big dog. He doesn't have the hostility and the intent to destroy things.
Yeah, he's not a monster.
A lot of definitions, by the way, will try to include something like they're representative of a greater force. I find that very lacking because that's a very metatextual representation when that shouldn't be what you point to for a kaiju. When every other piece of like what makes it is very clearly just something like you could objectively say it is a big guy, it is a monster, it's in the cities, it destroys things. So
Yeah, you definitely have to kind of read things into it that may not be there with original intent if you're going for that for kaiju.
Mhm.
it is quite helpful and interesting to look at the way kaijus are used, what they represent, like military power abstractly, or nature is a lot of the ways they're used. That's all really cool. But I feel like, again, if you start putting those definitions in, you're going to pull in stuff like fairies and sprites that are really tall when that doesn't feel like it should be a kaiju. And kaiju is one of those things where it there's a lot of people say it has to pass the kaiju sniff test, where you know it's a kaiju when you see it. Otherwise, it's gets annoying to try to break it down. I think we did a good job breaking it down already.
Mm-hmm.
The Eye of Sauron is a kaiju.
I don't know if the Eye of Sauron is a monster.
But the Eye of Sauron can't step on me. Therefore, it's not a
So true.
kaiju.
Well,
So true.
No, see, that's my point. That's my point.
I see. Fair.
Now Alferi says, Galacon the Black for the Civilians definitely a kaiju, even though it's a fantasy story. It's like
Mhm.
destructive. The way he goes around, eating the Cimmerals, all that crap. So
Yeah.
Are
They
the
also
Ents
be
a
monsters.
kaiju, though?
Are the
no,
Ents?
because they're not destructive. Even though
Yeah,
they
I'd
do
say
destroy
they're
Saruman's
expecting to be
tower.
monsters.
Yeah.
Then again, I don't know, to like people who aren't good for the forest entering in there, they'd be monsters. So I'd say the Ents could be kaiju if you're just some poor lumberjack wandering into the forest.
They don't actually destroy people who gather wood. The problem that they had with Sauron is like, as the orcs cut down the trees, they salted the ground to make sure nothing would grow.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
But to those orcs, definitely definitely the Ents are kaiju.
Oh, no, the Ents just are kaiju. That is just a fact. They are massive. They are considered. I would definitely consider them monsters. Like it wouldn't even be
Yes,
just
but what
compared to
would
the
we call
orcs.
monster, I guess? I mean, like
Monster is a
inhuman.
very broad term.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Are we counting moral element as the
Like
monster?
the thing is,
Does it have to be?
I
I
would
mean, Judge
say
Holden is a monster, but he's not a kaiju, is he?
No, but he's not
Oh,
giant.
shit, but yeah, I think you're right.
because monster
But
could
then-
literally be like anything. Like a giant could be considered a monster, but that's just a human that's really big.
I was
Okay,
gonna
so
say, what's the difference between a giant and a kaiju then? Because when we giant is used in a
I
lot
was
of
going to say
different
there
ways.
might not be a difference.
Hmm.
Just all giants are kaiju, but not all kaiju are giants.
Yeah, the way I've seen it, the way I've seen people use the word, they just use the word monster and kaiju interchangeably. There's no distinction between the two terms.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But nobody would ever say a
Well,
giant kaiju.
there is a difference, as in like like you said, monster and kaiju are the same. Kaiju is something that has to be very big. Like you could say a monster is like a human-sized like creature of the night werewolf thing.
Yeah.
But that
Well,
wouldn't
true,
be a kaiju.
yeah.
That wouldn't
Well,
be a
yeah, well,
kaiju.
if you look at characters like Kafka Hibino in Kaiju number 8, he's technically classified as a
Oh,
kaiju because he
right,
got
yeah,
the
I forgot.
powers of a kaiju. However, he's not
Yeah,
kaiju
well,
sized.
yeah, that's I'm guessing that only the two of us have read this manga. There's a manga. It's also getting an anime right now. The anime is still coming out called Kaiju number 8. Where so there's the standard your giant like monstrous beings that are destroying cities. However, there are also kaiju who are like numbered or based on like when they appeared and or something like that. It's kind of inconsistent, a bit like that.
In
But
that
the
sense, I think they're
kaiju
going with the
almost always
Pacific
are
Rim.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
The kaiju
Yeah,
are
they're
like
using the
human
Pacific
size.
Rim usage of the word like it's a classification.
Yeah. The the numbered kaiju are almost always human sized though. Kaiju number 8 is human sized, for example, and the protagonist.
Yeah, and then there's Kaiju number 10, I believe. The giant one, the giant red one, the one that spoilers for Kaiju number 8, if you haven't seen it or read it. He fights the captain Hoshina, I think that's his name, and then the Amina shows up with the cannon and blows him to that one. That one can grow
Yeah,
to a monstrous
yeah.
size about several meters.
There's also, I think number 9 was it? The one that like is the main antagonist, quote unquote, who like can polymorph
Hmm,
himself.
probably, yeah. Because
Yeah.
again, like the anime classifies kaiju like, okay, if you're not human, then you are if you're not from this earth, or at least something that is a member of like the food chain, something that doesn't belong, an aberration, then you are a kaiju. If you have supernatural powers and you use those to destroy, you are a kaiju. And we've only been getting these monsters that only fit that description. So in that sense,
Mhm.
kaiju is more of a classification, similarly to how they do it in Pacific Rim,
Yeah.
where they also have like different categories of kaiju depending on how
Yeah.
destructive they are.
Yeah, but in that case, I'm not sure if we should classify Kaiju number 8 Kaijus in our consideration because it's more of
I
a
would
recent iteration. I'm not
definitely
sure though.
not, because at
Say no.
that point, we might as well just say it's only a kaiju if you say it's a kaiju. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair, but that's not really interesting. That
Useful?
doesn't really
Kind
add
of
anything.
silly.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah, it's not
useful.
useful.
It's also like when people make elves just humans with pointy ears, like they don't even have a longer life or even a connection to magic. I don't think they're elves anymore. And I would say that in this
Yeah.
instance, they're not kaiju. I did want to point at something Alex brought up. Can robots be kaiju? This is what definition I struggle with because I
That would
think
be a mecha.
so, but I also don't think so at the same time. Because
Hmm.
Mechagodzilla
Yeah,
definitely
I
is a
would really
kaiju.
have to be lift.
But
Yeah, I would really have to be living to be a kaiju, or capable of rationale or
They
just
have to
animalistic
have been
behavior.
alive at one point.
Or
Smile
wait,
in
wait,
case
wait.
of
What
like
about
undead kaiju.
what about? I think they just have to not be under someone's control. 'Cause if
I don't
They
think that
they can't
that's
be a vehicle because I would classify a Mechagodzilla
they
or a
cannot be
Jaeger.
entirely mechanical. There we go.
Yeah, they can't be either man-made or
Because
just
like
a vehicle.
you could definitely get a kaiju under someone's control. That would just be a gigantic undead like monstrous lizard or something. Like an undead dragon. That's a fucking kaiju.
Or a flesh
Yeah,
colossus.
they do
so
the
Yeah.
you
same
think
thing
that
with Mecha King Ghidorah as well in the Heisei era.
if someone just builds a Mecha Godzilla, just a they don't use a corpse of
From
Godzilla,
parts.
they just build
Yeah.
one.
From literally
Yeah.
just
Is
dirt.
that
But they're
is that not?
aliens. Therefore, it's different somehow.
Yeah, but surely that would count, right? Like that would have to count
I
if they built a Godzilla.
hmm. I would
I would
consider it more
definitely
of
count it if they used the corpse. Like for example, in the MonsterVerse, you
yeah.
have a
Sure,
different
sure.
species of Godzilla called Dagon. So if they built the Mechagodzilla around the corpse of Dagon, which is by the way what they should have done, then sure, I could definitely count that as a kaiju.
But if it's
What I'm
just
saying is
made from machine parts,
yeah.
I would personally not classify that as a kaiju.
I don't know. I don't know. Like I feel like if you're building a giant robot dinosaur, that
Like
kind
in
of has
that
to
case,
count, right?
Mechazord and all the gigantic like stuff like that would also technically be kaiju.
Oh yeah, Power Rangers, it's all kaiju.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would
but
say
are they
so.
living?
Hmm.
But I don't really think what I'm saying is I don't really think that is a like necessary component of kaiju because like
Hmm.
if you build a giant robotic dinosaur, that's a fucking kaiju right there. You know, like that's a
Because
kaiju. Like
it's kaiju. If it's not kaiju, why is it kaiju shaped?
exactly.
All right, I can get that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean like
Transformers are
crazy
kaiju.
science. I kind of well when they're definitely in the robot form of or not the robot form the
Autobot.
version where they turned into dinosaurs. There was a whole series where they were like, "Oh yeah, we're transforming into dinosaurs." Am I
Oh, the
mistaken about that?
Dinobots.
Yeah. See, I feel like that has to count. But like, I don't know, just regular Transformers. Like that seems I don't a regular old humanoid giant robot does not seem to fit the category.
I have a
Hmm.
question though. What about the Because in Transformers: The Last Night, there's this three-headed dragon. I always just call it Mecha King Ghidorah because it is functionally a Mecha King Ghidorah. because it's three heads, it's a dragon, and it's mechanical, but it's also living. So, at which, like, is it a kaiju? Is it a mecha kaiju? What is it?
Your definitions, it would be a kaiju that you've listed here. I actually don't think they're kaiju. And no, I think that the a fundamental difference, the reason what separates a lot of the robotic stuff apart from it is it's got to be in other kaiju media for it to be able to be considered part of them. It's in universe we call it a kaiju, whereas out of universe we should think of them as something different. Just like even though there are other names for them in Star Wars, basically every evil group that uses the Force is a Sith. I know there are other special names; they're all just Sith.
But then we're back into it's just a kaiju if you call it a kaiju territory.
It has to be in kaiju-related media.
Yeah,
There's
but
not
what
anything
about,
that's just a
go
giant.
back to kaiju number 8, who's just a monster dude who's just human sized.
Man, that's
Like
different.
And
You know, I'm talking
But
specifically the
what
robot
it-
exception.
Oh, the robot exception. Okay, I can.
Okay,
Also, yes,
that leads
Avas
into like a
are
next.
kaiju. To
Yeah,
Alex
that leads.
Gomez's comment, yes, Avas are 100% kaijus.
Yeah, that's what I was
Come
gonna
on.
ask. Like the Avas, the angels in Evangelion. That's what I was gonna ask.
Yes,
I
the
think so as
Angels
well.
and Avas are definitely kaiju. I mean, the Avas are basically just giant monsters in power armor with people inside of them, and the Angels are literal giant world-destroying monsters.
Huh. Because like if we like
Oh,
ignore
spoiler
like the
for Evangelion.
biomechanical aspect of
Yeah,
the.
spoiler for Evangelion. The Avas are giant people under the armor.
Well, what
Big
about the Titans in AOT? Like Aaron Yeager, the founding Titan, the colossal Titan, Ymir.
I'd say they're kaiju because they do have monstrous traits as well.
Attack
Yeah,
on
they are
Titan
pretty
for all of us.
monstrous.
But they're also like vehicles because they're man
They're
motor,
they're
mutant
flesh
side.
vehicles. This is true.
Yeah.
flesh mechs.
Flashback.
Honestly,
Oh,
I think that just makes them even more disgusting and kaiju-esque.
yeah, they are exceptionally
Biological
monstrous.
mechs.
Yeah,
Honestly, calling
Yeah,
it a
I can
biomech
dig
is
it.
super cool. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is
Yeah.
the T-Rex from 1993's Jurassic Park a kaiju?
No, that's a dinosaur. Listen. I think we should make a clear distinction. Dinosaurs are not kaiju.
I guess because
Kaiju
they were a
kind
real thing.
of. I think kaiju are more. You were mentioning magic before, kid.
Yeah,
They don't
mystical
necessarily.
effects.
They're not
Mystical or
natural.
yeah, some unnatural quality or another.
Yeah, there's something. They're created by aliens. They're made by magic. A dinosaur gets hit by a nuke and becomes Godzilla. Something.
Or
There's
they have
usually
some other
Or at the very
special
least-
trait that is
Yeah, or at the very
definitely
least, they're
not.
like a cryptid or something.
How
Yeah.
about this? How about this? Are the dinosaurs of 65 kaiju? Have you seen the movie 65 with Adam Driver?
I think I could do one
No.
easier for you, Rooney. Is the Indominus Rex from Jurassic World a kaiju then? That's the dinosaur they made in the
I'd
lab.
say so.
that would
Look,
be,
I'd
yeah.
say yes because I'd definitely say yes.
It's a
Yeah.
genetically engineered turbo dinosaur. Yeah, I would say so.
It
I
has
think that's
optical
cool.
camouflage. Fuck yeah.
And
Yeah.
the Indoraptor, I would also argue that it's a kaiju question mark, because it's essentially like a gun, basically a dinosaur gun. Like you point at someone, and then the dinosaur devours them. As in, like, okay, it's so stupid too. Like, okay, why do I need that when I just have a gun? A gun is like more effective, less volatile. It's safer. Like, why do I need a dino gun when I can just have like a gun?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you would think the benefit would be that you can just like let them go and they would kill things that you would want them to kill, but instead you're just
kind
like,
of like a gun, kind of like
Yeah.
a gun.
It's funny that
Crazy.
film's side note. It makes me laugh every time because there's exactly one use for the dinosaurs, and they say, "Yeah, we can use these puppies to clear the tunnels of Afghanistan." Like that is basically the only time a dinosaur would be more useful than a guy with a gun.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like little suicide jobs like that. Speaking of which, I'd say no. The great old ones are not kaiju, Alex, because they're supposed to be like deities. They're supposed to be like a realm beyond. I don't think kaiju are typically deities. I mean, sure, people can worship giant monsters as deities, and I guess Mothra is kind of like a divine creature.
Another thing about kaiju, I think, might be to note it's their intelligence.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up
Because, like,
sentience,
that'd be a...
sapience, being
Yeah, generally
alive.
they're kind of dumb.
Yeah, generally. There are a few that are... I don't think that it really goes too far beyond human, which would be what, like, great old ones get way past.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd say something
Yogg-Sothoth
of
was
godlike
not a
intelligence.
kaiju.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of breaks it.
We don't... There's no real good point for the intelligence, though, because... Like, good point to, like, put the intelligence at, I'd say.
Yeah,
But
no
If
limit.
it
definitely
has
not, like...
rationale, maybe, if there's a clear motive, okay, I'm trying to survive, I'm trying to find food. Because if we can go back to the kaijus of kaiju number 8, let's see, the first episode, they clear out a kaiju that's just wandering about in a city. We don't really get the rationale, it just seems like an animal wandering about. Or if we're looking at Zilla in 1998, it's a giant iguana lizard that is trying to find a place to lay her eggs and also likes to eat a lot of fish. That is a clear rationale. But then if
Yeah.
you look at something like, for example, I guess the um the no, not Pacific
I was
Rim.
gonna say Kong from the more recent movies. Like, he's quite intelligent. Like, the only thing that really sets him apart from humans is he can't talk. He still has, like,
He can
He has
similar
sign
technically talk. He's
language.
got sign language, yeah.
Which
He
is
Oh,
can
okay.
silly.
So yeah,
communicate.
he's basically a fucking human in terms of intelligence.
Yeah, yeah.
I would definitely
mean-
still qualify him as a kaiju, though. Is the thing.
Yeah, I want to see them give him an assault rifle. I want to see them give him like a
Stop.
280 millimeter
Give
assault
him
rifle.
give him a scaled up autocannon. Fuck it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that'd be
I wanted
great.
to put King Kong in power armor. The
Look,
fist, I hope, is
we-
only the first thing, and they should keep
we-
powering up Godzilla too. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
they should put jet wings on him.
We
So-
basically take like a rail cannon from like, but as in like one of those cannons that the Germans were like, well, let's put this on a fucking train.
Yeah.
Scale
Are the
that up some
Tyranids
more. and
kaiju,
give
though?
that to- Some
Are the
yes.
Tyranids kaiju? Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. Some definitely are. And
I
I
did-
think I think the Tyranid Overmind itself is like big kaiju daddy.
We have no idea what the fuck it is. It
Yeah.
could
Did
be
wanna
like
bring
an
up something
elder
real
brain
quick?
from a fucking Baldur
Mhm,
from whatchamacallit.
Hmm.
D&D. It could be
Yeah.
What's up,
just
kid?
like a gigantic planet-sized elder brain for all we know.
No, I did
That's
want to bring
true.
this up earlier on the Can Kaijus Be Gods? They have to be because King Caesar in American, he's an Okinawan deity that they fight. Ghidorah is also Yamato no Orochi, and like that's why he's got the 3 heads and the serpent's body and such. So
Aren't those just
Hmm.
references to them, or like?
well, King
I'm
Caesar
pretty sure
literally
that's just
is
relating
that.
it to mythology.
Well, King
Yeah,
Caesar
and
literally
Tiamat
is
in
just
the
a god,
Monsterverse.
whereas Ghidorah's maybe related to it. Maybe is it? Ghidorah's much more
I would
vague.
assume it's more of I would
And
assume
Tiamat.
that is more of like the typical thing of, oh, they were seen by an ancient tribe, saw it, and decided to make up shit about it, and now it's seen as Orochimaru or whatever the fuck.
You know, I think maybe
Tiamat,
maybe the
and-
deity, maybe the cutoff for like deific things in kaiju, like at what point I think it's probably how they use their power. Like
Yeah.
Godzilla has like the power of like lesser deities and whatnot in like D&D terms, or maybe even like some mid-tier deities. But all it is him punching things to death. That's just like all he does.
I wouldn't say he has the powers similar to deities, but he definitely has power on par with them. Like, he could fight.
Yeah, if you've read Godzilla in Hell, he literally killed Satan.
Yeah, I can
Sorry,
see
what?
that.
Yeah, like
Oh,
he can definitely fight gods, but he's definitely not a god in like any.
He has
really-
fought and killed God as well in Godzilla in Hell.
all right, of course. Well, it's
Again,
Japanese
he
media.
can fight gods, but he cannot. He himself is not considered a god. Like, I would never see it.
Yeah, so
What
what I'm
about
saying,
mythical creatures like Jorgenmander or Tiamat or great serpents like the Leviathan in the Bible? Are those kaiju?
Great serpents for sure are kaiju. Oh my
Mm.
goodness, great
Yeah.
serpents like sea monsters like that, totally.
So I actually want to bring up a definition that a friend of ours, Carolus, brought up. He was
Mhm.
specific, and I think he's got a very, very good amount of media literacy. So I usually like to listen to what he has to say sometimes. By the way, if you're listening,
Mhm.
Carolus, you're welcome to come on the podcast whenever you want. Just let me know, buddy. He
He has
said
media
that
literacy.
kaiju necessarily has to be related to 1950s Japanese science fiction and the sensibilities therein. Anything earlier than that automatically disqualifies it. Even if it would fit that definition, it becomes retroactively put in instead of being a phenomenon related to kaiju. That's why the dinosaurs and the great old ones and like the Jormungandr technically are kaiju, but only retroactively, which means that they don't actually fit the definition of a kaiju because they weren't around in the vein of what we would call a kaiju. It's more like they're a kaiju by accident. I think it's a really interesting point and
So
something to think about there because it kind of makes you have to understand that, like, when you're trying to put things into boxes and categories, this is one of the reasons it gets so much messier and so much more difficult because I can completely agree that it has to be a science fiction film related to the roughly the modern era. Yeah, but remember, the modern era starts in like 1850s or something, guys. That's we're technically in the postmodern era. But so it has to be, with technology and situations related to mankind, they have to necessarily be part of a kaiju story, or else it's a story that you took a kaiju and put into another story, or it's you specifically going against type. Just like how all Predator films are supposed to be about him fighting humans. So if you put him in a situation where he's got to fight less technologically advanced humans, like that movie Prey that just came out, you necessarily have to do extra work to downgrade the Predator because it doesn't make sense for him to be there otherwise. That's why they had all this
so
bunch of lore about their hunting skills.
so by that definition, that means that the beast of 20,000 fathoms, that creature is not a kaiju because it came before Godzilla.
Same with King Kong. And again, I'm not entirely like in love with that definition, but I do want to give if we're gonna go maximalist with a lot of people in this call, then I want to give the minimalist version as well. Give it a fair
I
shot and a
would
fair
argue
shake.
that the era started with Beast of 20,000 Fathoms because that movie inspired, well, helped inspire aspects of Godzilla 1954, the original.
Well, if you want to get really
And so
specific,
because
it should be the Great Buddha arrival in 1934, because that is the first time that there's a Japanese piece of media that has a monster that's called a kaiju that shows up and starts destroying parts of Japan while the military is too inept to stop it. That that movie, I can't watch it. It's in Japanese and it's like from the 34. I've seen pictures of it. I've heard definitions of it. I cannot verify these claims. That's why I personally am a little bit iffy on it. But I've also done a lot of research when I'm doing my history of things to realize that, man, sometimes people just flat out make shit up and they lie because you can't verify them. But also sometimes people just ignore things that they can't verify themselves. One of
I
the
love
biggest
that
things
strategy.
this so I want to give a quick
It's so
side
funny.
rant, guys.
It's so funny.
Well, no, the quick side rant for all you people who are fans of the channel who are wondering, King, where the hell's the hit point video you promised us 3 months ago? Yeah, this is the problem. Every swinging dick wants to claim hit points and where it came from. Everybody keeps citing things that like it cannot have come from. For example, there's a book that they cite called "Don't Give Up the Ship." I was convinced that this book came out 3 years after D&D because that's when the official printing came out of it in 75. And I'm like, okay, it can't be related to this. Then I found a random article in a like a local like newspaper that mentioned that book being released locally in 72, and it cites Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson as working on it in 72. The company that they released it for immediately went under though, so they got the rights to it and re-released it, a few years later. So now I have to do all that research has been thrown out. You also see people keep saying that things like the United Naval College of London said that a hit point is how many 14-inch shells it takes to take down a ship. That's been put in memes and TikToks and shared all over the internet. There's not a single source out there that says that. It's funny to say a hit point's a 14-inch shell, but I can't find it anywhere. So, like, that's the problem when I'm doing this research. Like, because that sounds right, That sounds like something logical. It sounds like it's all related to the boat combat stuff that is true, but that's just to me fake news. And that's the problem with this kaiju research. Because early Japanese media was not as well preserved as modern Japanese media is, and just over time degradation happened, I can't look at this film, so I don't know if people are lying to me. I mean, on Wikipedia alone, I've had multiple times where I've found errors and things that I've had submitted to them and say, hey, fix this. This is just flat out wrong. Under the orcs section, it's abysmal, some of the stuff in the orcs on Wikipedia. It's even worse with Rakshasas.
Okay.
So, I just wanted to share that.
That's a
so
nice
people,
argument.
well, I just wanted to explain to people why it's so frustrating and why it's important to have the discussions we're having now to try to hash out an idea because there is no good idea for these things. All the experts are just lying because this has got no true experts on it. It's a very unfortunately neglected field of study. You know, these are modern mythologies that we're just abandoning by the wayside for people, to try to figure out later.
That's a nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
Sources, I made it the fuck up.
Yeah, it's so funny. No, but I get what you mean. I get what you mean. Yeah, the frustration. Like you can't rely on these sources of information. You got to do extra work to fill in the blanks left behind by the incompetence of someone else. I get it.
I would love to be able to point to one thing because this is something that, ironically, monster movies share with fantasy the genre as a whole. You basically have two eras of all monster movies. You've got the pre-Godzilla and then post-Godzilla. Once Godzilla hits, it is literally a nuclear warhead that reshapes the entire environment of monster movies. Every single monster movie after Godzilla is shot like Godzilla. It has sound effects like Godzilla. There's the way the monster moves. There's the guy in the suit. All of them are based off of that. Even things like books and TV shows and video games all are aping and referencing Godzilla. Even when they're not referencing him, they do things like King Kong. The way the King Kong that they portray moves is much like the King Kong remakes that came out in the 50s after the Godzilla movies came out that were inspired by the Godzilla movies.
You have no idea how true that is. I was recently watching the production, not the production, the pre-production, watching a video on the pre-production of Ultraman Rising, and apparently they were referencing some with the monsters like Naranga and Nakamura. The very first monster that appeared in episode one of the first Ultraman series in the 60s, I forgot his name, and I think it was Gigantron. Yeah. So apparently there were a lot of sound effects that have been recycled and referenced as well, but also recycled from other Godzilla movies. And the reason for that was that they literally just had the license to do it. There was just stock sound effects that they could use. For example, Emmy, one of her many sounds that she makes is literally Mothra's cries. So yeah, that is you have no, and apparently that's like omnipresent in a lot of kaiju media like Ultraman and Gamera even. So you have no idea how true this is. It persists even to this day. And it was also present in Shin Ultraman as well. A lot of the assets from old Godzilla movies were present as well because Tsuburaya, if I remember correctly, he was responsible for the special effects of Godzilla movies, and there is one monster in particular, although I don't remember that name, that is literally you know that lizard that has like these wide little fans at the back of the head. I forgot what it was called, but yeah, they're sure, sure. I mean, it's an actual lizard in real life, but sure. That let's use that as a baseline. There's a version of the monster of Godzilla that is literally just the equivalent of that creature, and it's literally just Godzilla with like a fleshy fan behind its head, and they reused costumes from Godzilla, the Showa era Godzilla, repainted them and added that in the back of the head. Even in Shin Ultraman, I think they might have used the Shin Godzilla design and remade it so that it looked like that specific Ultraman monster. I don't remember the name, but they did that. They updated for that specific film, if I remember correctly. Let me see if I can find
showing up for yours, my friend. Oh,
Hmm?
top chat. Oh, that's why. Hang on. There we go.
That'd be why.
Thanks, YouTube. I'm so happy you keep defaulting to ruin my streaming experience.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with streaming
Anytime.
experience?
Working
Seeing it,
as
buddy.
intended, baby.
But yeah, so Alex had two thoughts. He said, "Are you talking about Giras or Bembelar?" I don't know what those words mean anything to you, but I hope they do.
Nope. Fuck all.
That's to you, Rooney. But thank you for the
Oh,
thumbs
sorry.
up, Alex.
I was looking for it. It was Jiras. Yes, it was Jiras. That one.
There you go. Cookie for you, Alex Gomez. Congratulations. So yeah, this is why I brought the Godzilla experts in. I enjoy Godzilla, but I am nowhere near enough of an expert to cite some of the movie sources on it. I can cite things like from the historical side because I've been doing a crap ton of research on it. I can point to different, trends and mediums, but just I I don't know.
The full extent of knowledge you needed from all generations. But yeah, no, the Jiras redesign in Shin Ultraman actually looks really, really cool.
I can dig it. I can dig it.
I definitely like the recolor. I would have like this. Honestly, looks like a better version of the Shin Godzilla design. Like it doesn't like the original Shin Godzilla design isn't bad. It just looks so much better. But but it also comes across as like a Godzilla ripoff. Like, oh look, we got this Godzilla-looking monster that is an Ultraman villain, but it's not actually Godzilla. And that's a weird thing too. Like you see a lot of monsters like Ultraman, Gamera, Godzilla. They all exist in their own bubble, but they never interact with each other. And Jet Jaguar, in particular, feels like a stand-in for Ultraman the same way Jiras feels like a stand-in for Godzilla. And then Gamera doesn't really have much of either, to my knowledge. At least, my knowledge extends as far back as the Heisei era, but not as far back as the Showa era. So I might not know what I'm talking about in that regard. But yeah, like there's no overlap other than like Jet Jaguar and Jiras, there's no Ultraman between those franchises, and I find it strange because they're all owned by Toho. So, and there's a lot of interchanging parts that benefit each specific franchise that they borrow a lot from each other, but they never really collaborated. Like we haven't seen a Godzilla versus Gamera fight only in like animations and collaborations and Death Battle. There was that Death Battle episode a few years back. Like
I
I
can tell
I
you
watched
why.
that when it came out.
Somebody has to lose. Somebody has to lose if
And
those
no
two
one
fight.
wants that.
Yeah.
The fans don't really like that because if you're a fan of one of the monsters and that monster loses, it kind of just feels like, oh, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
I feel like some Gamera fans could agree that Godzilla might win, but Godzilla is like I've described this before in my Ultraman Rising stream, which by the way, thank you so much Netflix for taking that video down. Um there Godzilla is often like the T-Rex equivalent when it comes to monster movies. Like whenever you see dinosaur-related media, the T-Rex is always at the forefront. Same way Godzilla is always at the forefront of kaiju media, and in a lot of ways, he's both a T-Rex and Goku, especially in the MonsterVerse. But it it comes across as overbearing, overwhelming. It feels like it overstays its welcome to some degree. So maybe I don't know, because I know for a fact that uh, the two most powerful versions of Godzilla, Shin Godzilla and Singular Point Godzilla, could definitely wipe the floor with other versions of Gamera. I don't know about Ultraman though, but I definitely know Gamera would definitely lose. But
Gamera's
but
definitely
I
not
don't
as
think
powerful from what I've seen.
I
But he's
think
friendlier and he's got a whole bunch of little children that love him. They're definitely not annoying
I
in
oh
any
yeah,
way.
I was gonna say I think Ultraman did fight Godzilla. I'm pretty sure he lost.
did
I'm
he?
pretty sure there was like a very old there was like a very old thing of Ultraman fighting Godzilla, But it was very like shonen, you were a good fight, and then they just both fucked off to their respective properties. I vaguely remember looking up something about that in preparation for this, but I of course did not save it, so I don't know where it is. Cannot
You sure
convert.
that wasn't you sure that wasn't Jiras? Because they use the exact same assets for Godzilla for that design of that monster.
Yeah, maybe. I could be wrong, I'm not sure.
I mean, that could be like the closest thing we could get to a Godzilla versus Ultraman fight, but then again, it's not the actual thing, which bothers me.
Mhm.
So I did want to jump in because I know that there's a lot of autistic lore here, and I did have a piece of autistic lore about lost media type things. Reusing things, and Hollywood has the same thing too. By the way, if you don't know, in Hollywood there is a sound library that a lot of media gets their things from. George Lucas used this when making his first film, Graffiti. Is it Graffiti Junction? American Graffiti. American Graffiti. During American Graffiti, he found a scream that he thought was absolutely hysterical. And he found that this scream was used in an old cowboy film, and it was under their domain. So he used it in all of his things. This has become known as the Wilhelm scream. You might assume that cowboy movie is where the Wilhelm scream came from, but it was not. We had no idea where that came from. We had no idea where the most famous scream in all of Hollywood had come from for about 60 years. It wasn't until 2 years ago somebody was disposing of a bunch of old tapes from like one of those Hollywood warehouses and put them in. And he found a I want to say 38 or 48 audio recording of man being bitten by alligator 3. And that's what the Wilhelm scream was. So, yeah,
Oh,
it's kind of funny how things like assets that are super famous just get reused all the time.
Yeah, it's ever. I mean, that's kind of like the way human kind of work just in general. Is we're always like recycling things and improving them, but it's just so easy for things to get lost. Even if we like have it recorded where it's from, that doesn't mean everyone knows. Look at people who misattribute, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but there's tons of things people will like assume. Great examples like everyone is like, oh, this thing is like a Dark Souls reference, or is it this reference, or is from like this popular media, but it's been in existence way before that.
Oh, yeah. I have a buddy of
Drifters.
mine. We were talking about Abiotic Factor, which is a great game, by the way. And he was talking about how you could open up the map and open up the levels and how it's like Dark Souls. And I was thinking to myself when he said that, I'm like, I'm pretty sure Dark Souls is not the first game that allows you to open up the map. But it's interesting how it's kind of become the only one that people talk about now that allows you to open up the map like that, just because the way that this media landscape discussion has gone.
The influence of the influence and the impact of of a specific piece of media will always people will always find points of praise for these kinds of things, and they will always say, "Oh, this media did it first. This thing did it first. That thing did it first." People, for example, um, I think it's something seen in Dragon Ball, if I'm not mistaken, because people always attribute one thing to one piece of shonen anime, but it ultimately leads back to Dragon Ball. I mean, I've seen it a lot in like Twitter discourse, especially going with, "Oh, Jujutsu Kaisen did this, Jujutsu Kaisen did that. It's so cool." Okay, well, other shonen anime did it first, like Fist of the North Star, uh, the Akira, if I'm not mistaken. And
Every
even
anime is basically a ripoff of either Fist of the North Star or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Those are the two grandfathers of like all modern anime. Every single one traces lineage back there.
Mhm.
yeah, it surprised me to learn just how old JoJo really was because it just evolved into something completely alien and bizarre, pun intended.
It is his bizarre
I
adventure,
mean,
after all.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great, especially if you go back and you like read the different parts in order. Stardust Crusaders, the third part of JoJo, the one that most people think of when they think of memes, is an entirely different like story conceptually from part 1 and part 2. Old
Oh yes,
JoJo
I
was
can
about
taste a liar.
you can taste the
JoJo was
lie.
relatively
Oh
grounded.
god. Yeah, old JoJo is well, there's still plenty of silly shit, especially in part 2. But
Comparatively,
yeah,
it's
it
way
was
more
less
grounded.
about less psychic powers, more I breathe and I punch using the power of the sun.
Hmm.
And
I
yes,
would
Berserk is the
definitely.
medieval fist of the North Star. That is correct.
That's very correct.
I was gonna bring up Berserk at some capacity. I just didn't know how to interject it. But
Don't
yeah,
worry, not all fairies has you covered.
Yeah.
yeah, because people, yeah, because people, I will say like people definitely correctly attribute a lot of Souls games inspirations from Berserk, especially with the most recent addition to Elden Ring. If you know your Ring lore. I mean, I'm
I
vaguely
am actually going to
familiar
say
with
that
it.
they wrongfully attribute it because I don't think Berserk is as well regarded. Almost been highly overrated how much inspiration is there, considering Guts is very derivative of Fist of the North Star. His whole journey and stuff. Yeah, the actual way it's told is, but the idea of it's like dark and there's blood and all that, it goes back to that. You can pull it back to a long way back in the past. Yeah, Berserk is more Devilman, I guess. That's a good point, Nevis. Like again, you could keep pulling it back. So it's tough when things start referencing themselves and each other to know what are they referencing. Is it that's the huge problem Disney Star Wars actually has, because the people who write Disney Star Wars are so stupid and have only ever seen like Star Wars. They can't reference the things that Star Wars was referencing, so they reference Star Wars. So it's a cheap copy of a cheap copy, which is one of the reasons that the modern stuff feels so lame and unfulfilling, because it's just you're
It's
getting a
really
copy of a copy. Excuse me.
it's really a shame too, because like that, like media building on itself is a good thing. Like it's not a bad thing to get inspired and have references and do stuff like that. It's just that people yeah, it's a great thing, but a lot of when you're really young or you're very like media illiterate, it's very excusable. Like when you're 17 and you play Dark Souls for the first time and you don't know what a berserk is, it makes total sense that you think it all came from there. But eventually, at some point, it is your fault for not looking into things. Like that is just a you problem.
Bring this up because it bothers me so much whenever I see people just wrongfully talking about references. It seems like nobody can remember things past 10, 15 years ago. And I was looking at like, what? How are you people so stupid? There's so many great pieces of media that came out before even I was born, and I'm an old man. So it's like, dude, how can you not go ahead?
N-
Somebody said
No, I was
something?
just making a joke, like back in my.
Yeah, back in my day. But no, like that's one of the reasons that you get so many like terrible pieces of media, and it's just so annoying because like that's why in my server, if we're going through book club, if you wonder why one video a month is book club, it's because I think we need it, and I want to show you people some of the old things, even if they're great stories that are going to resonate throughout time, like Thomas Covenant, or disposable trash, like whatever Shai keeps having us read. It's important to go back and see where
You
did these
mixed
things
up that
come from.
order, buddy.
Hey, he had,
Someone
by
mixed
the way, he had to
the
leave the
order.
call for those of you who are wondering. He had a emergency with his child, but I will relentlessly bully him for leaving the call. It doesn't matter if it's a valid reason. He still gets bullied. We wouldn't be friends if there's
Very
no
valid.
bullying.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
true.
Male
I have a
friendship involves
question.
much bullying.
I have a question. It is Fing Fang Foom a kaiju? Just to try and bring the subject back into kaijuisms.
I don't know what that is, so I'm going to leave it up to GG since Nebula, since he knows way
What
more.
was it again?
Yeah. Say it again. What is that?
Fing Fang Foom, which is a dragon from Marvel. He's very
Wow.
underutilized. He's very underrated.
This guy looks like a
Yeah,
sex
he-
offender. Yeah, he looks
Yeah,
kaiju
he
enough.
would be a kaiju.
Send me a clip and I'll put it on the screen for the screen for the stream. By the way, late night losers, I see you in chat. You're more than welcome to come join us.
Here, I DM
Oh,
you.
okay,
and-
Alex. No, Alex. It's it's not a timeless classic because of the infamous scene. That scene is not even the worst part about Thomas Covenant book. So the
I
reason
wish
Thomas
it was
Covenant was a classic is because it's written incredibly well. The prose is verbose. The ideas it presents are somewhat interesting. It then just spends about 4 hours going over the same thing to make it so you hate those ideas. If it was a
Kid, I
completely
DM'd you an image of this sex offender dragon.
excellent. Oh my goodness gracious!
Yeah.
I'm
It's
going to
not
make a
even what he
montage
looks
of this
like.
thing real quick for the chat. So yeah, chat, entertain yourselves while we talk about how Thomas Covenant is evil. I did not hate the book as much as some of the other people in my the live stream here
I
have.
am a hater.
I luckily did not read it.
Yeah, I fucking hate that book. There are I I had to go down a rabbit hole where I thought, are there less terrible rapists in fiction? And yes, there are literal rapists in fiction who are just better people than Thomas Covenant.
The stream died.
No, not that I know of.
Well, you
It
guys
looks
check.
I caused it to die.
Hang on, Alex just said the stream cut off. Are we back? Uh-oh. Can one of you guys
I
check real quick?
I
Or
hear it from my end.
can you hear us right now? What we're saying, our concern? Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
For me, stream's running.
I'm hearing Shadow talk about the less terrible people.
Yep.
Maybe refresh stream.
Yeah, refresh.
Do not do that. No, I'm
Oh.
on YouTube right now. The stream is going right now, but
Okay.
like I don't know. Let me check if like the audios were.
Was in
I'll
jest.
attack you motherfuckers. I'm gonna kill you people. Yeah, that's right. You got me to swear on my stream.
We've had too many technical issues. All right, excellent.
All right, hang on, Pip. Don't
Yeah,
say
like,
anything
I've
yet
been
before you
having the
blow over these
exact same
eardrums
thing.
out. Okay, thank God. All right, I
Yeah.
have everybody. So Discord is this awesome thing where it makes everybody like dead silent whenever I am listening to them. So whenever you guys join the call, it like triples your volume. It's a Discord known glitch, by the way. It's not just me. Oh,
Yeah. So we're talking about Fin Fang Foom, the the dragon
dragon.
not allowed within 50 million yards of the school.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I unironically
Right.
love Fing Fang Foom like as a concept. The most recent iteration of the character was in the Guardians of the Galaxy video game, which came out when 2020 something, 2021, 2022
so
around
hang
that
on
area.
1 second. I do want to finish the Thomas Covenant thought before we dive into Fing Fang Boom. But he's on stream for you all to look at. So the Thomas Covenant books, the reason it's considered a classic is because it is a well done subversion of Tolkien's of Tolkienian writing at the time, and it's written very well. The problem is Covenant sucks as a character, and all three books came out at like near the same time, and you basically have what should be one book's worth of growth across three. So it's easy to pick up all three books, and then after you pick up all three books, you're able to read through the whole thing. I'm not going to force the party to read through the rest of it. I really hated that Thomas Covenant book because I think you could have easily had an editor go in there, cut 30% of it, and make Covenant do one or two reasonable things, and the books would have been just much better. Anywhoozle, so back to Fing Fang Foom. So yeah, this is the definitely not allowed within the school character that is on screen now for chat. Now I'll move this Fing Fang Foom over here. What
One
the
of
hell am
the,
I looking at here,
the one
kids?
Yeah, no, the one on the left, the very first one. That's actually a mashup between is it Swamp Thing or Man Thing? Man Thing and Fing Fang Foom. That's not the actual Fing Fang Foom.
Thing.
Swamp Thing, yeah, that's the one. I always
Yeah,
confuse them
the
because
coolest
DC has
looking,
like
looking one on the
Man Thing.
left is incorrect. Of course.
Yes.
The
Yeah, no,
dragon, the
'cause-
one that looks more like a buff dragon in overalls, that's the correct one.
Which one is Man Thing Marvel or DC? Because they're so similar, they might as well just. Because is Swamp Thing DC? I always confuse the two.
Swamp Thing is DC, Man Thing is Marvel, I think.
Marvel.
Ah,
looks
okay,
like.
because Man Thing was in Werewolf by Night, so yeah, no, that's definitely Man Thing Fang Foom. Man Thing Fang Foom.
Mm.
The evil
He's
chick
Makes
so
that goes
sense.
to the
underrated. I
snake
think he
farm.
was in. I think he was in. I don't think he was in Earth's Mightiest Heroes, was he? Because I do remember, like, reading about him as a kid and being fascinated. Because I genuinely, I can't tell if he's like a Thor villain or a Fantastic Four villain. He has interacted with both of them, but mainly I've seen him with the Fantastic Four. I'm not really sure, but it's a crime that he's never been in an MCU project before. Like he would definitely fit somewhere with Shang-Chi or Doctor Strange or even the upcoming Fantastic Four movie, which by the way, I despise the casting. I hate it. I just I hate it. I just
See
wanted
it.
to
I already know it.
let y'all know.
I mean, I used to like Fantastic Four, but I don't really. I I don't. I can't really get myself to like care as much about comics days or about like Marvel
Yeah.
DC stuff. I'm
They-
sure it'll be either surprisingly good or expectedly mediocre. That's pretty much what I'm expecting.
Yeah, the way I see it, the Fantastic Four to me have always been like a family of space explorers more than superheroes. Even with the 2000s films with Jessica Alba, the most memorable part of those movies, I know. Even with those like movies, I always viewed them as scientists and explorers more than superheroes. They're kind of like the like you could literally just make if you wanted to make a kids show out of the Fantastic Four, you could make like a scientific educational kids show out of the Fantastic Four, similar to Cyber Chase or something along those lines. But like the Fantastic Four, I think are always at their best when they're exploring new worlds and showing the cosmic side of the Marvel Universe. The issue, however, is that they no longer fit that mold precisely because of teams like the Guardians of the Galaxy and movies like Infinity War, Endgame. Again, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel kind of ruined. I mean, she helped ruin the cosmic side of Marvel, and now the Fantastic Four are now redundant. That should have been like one of the first few teams that should have been introduced since I don't know Phase One or Phase Two even. Like replace the Guardians of
They
the
didn't have
Galaxy
the
with the
rights.
Fantastic Four.
They didn't
The
have the
rights.
rights though.
That's all it was.
That's not
No,
even like a Vision thing. That's more of a legal thing getting in the way.
And I'm not even
Oh
mad
no,
at
I
Disney
know
on
that
that.
uh,
much. I know that much.
You know, it's
Mhm.
not their
yeah.
fault they lost the rights.
Speaking
I
back
They
know
on
that
needed
the
money.
Yeah, I get that part, but even still, having the Fantastic Four now is redundant.
Hmm.
By the
it
way, I did want
kind
to
of
interrupt
is,
real quick.
but
Pip, I realize we didn't introduce you yet, sir. But Pip, why don't you tell chat a little bit about yourself and who you are, where they can find you?
name's Pip. I run a little channel myself, kind of alongside Young King here. Play games on there, do some mainly some playthroughs right now, playing through Persona 3 Reload over on the Late Night Loser channel if you want to go check that out on YouTube or on Twitch where I stream. Try and do that once a week just to keep it on nice, but I'm also want to be here to help out King, sorry.
Either one works. I get called both on here.
It's true.
Oh, I know. It is your channel. But going back to the Fin Fang Foom talk, turns out he's an enemy of both Iron Man and the Hulk, if that wasn't already said.
There you go, Mr. Rooney. Now we know.
Interesting.
Oh, sorry, you were saying?
Well, Pip found out that he's an enemy of Iron Man and the Hulk.
Hulk. Really? Hulk. That seems odd.
Well, Hulk needs big things to punch, and he does look kind of big.
Punchable.
Yeah, but I mean, the way he's structured, he's a giant mythical looking dragon. He's even got the whiskers of like a Chinese dragon. That seems like more of a Doctor Strange, Thor, Shang-Chi type villain, no? That would make a lot more sense.
Manchurian at all? Maybe that's why he's an Iron Man villain.
I'm not sure. I think that's a question for Astro. If he were here.
Baby, come back.
Hey, no, he's my
Job
beloved.
and tell
You
him
stay
he's
away from my
racist and
man.
he gets fired so we can
What was
straighten
the
it up.
what was the question about Fin? What was the question of Fin Fan Foom?
Is he related to oh crap, the Mandarin?
The Mandarin for Iron Man. Let me take a gander.
That would be interesting as to why he is an Iron Man villain. If he's like a Mandarin subordinate or Mandarin ally, that would explain his, as Rooney said, vaguely Asian dragon-looking facial features.
Are you assuming all Asians are dragons, you racist?
No, I'm saying that that's what they look like.
Honestly, if Asians were dragons, that would be really cool.
You know, I have a setting for you that does
It's-
that. It's called Shadow Dark. Or right? No, Shadowrun, right? Back me up here, Shadow.
The Fu Manchu
What,
mustache.
what about Shadowrun?
Isn't all these Chinese people turn into dragons in that?
No, I don't remember that being a thing in Shadowrun. It's been a while. I haven't looked at like the latest Shadowrun lore, but no,
I know, like,
there
orcs and
are
stuff are
dragons.
human stuff.
So the deal with like people, so no one turns into a dragon in Shadowrun. It just sometimes there are dragon spirits that like shamans get, but they're pretty rare. The thing with Shadowrun is that basically, like, elves and orcs and all those other, like, fantasy races have always been around. There just hasn't been a way to tell the difference between them and humans until magic comes back, and suddenly everyone starts changing very rapidly.
So,
Like, for example, if you're like a really tall person, if you come from a family where everyone is like taller than average, there's a good chance that when magic came back, you were all actually orcs.
I don't know. I've always looked at that. I'm never sure if I love it or hate it. Like every time I look at it, like it's 50-50. On the one hand, that's kind of neat. On the other hand, I just want regular races, man. Why you gotta be weird? You know?
Shadowrun has plenty of racism. It's just that everyone is still kind of a human. I think they're called like meta humanity now. It just encompasses everyone. That being said, if you want some fantastical racism, the game Shadowrun Returns, specifically, I want to say it's like the second expansion for that game, has a lot of fantastical racism in it. I said fantastical, by the way, not fantastic.
But yeah, but racism is fantastic, so what's the difference, really?
Twitter will find out.
Oh no. So to answer the kaiju question of Fin Fang Foom and see if he was in cohorts with the Mandarin. So he was at first. He was woken up by the Mandarin to take over the world and also not take over the world, but take over the Chinese government. He helps Mandarin take over a third of China, but then it is revealed that the Mandarin himself or his cohort Chen Husu, who not Fing Feng Foom, was revealed to be also an alien of Kaka Ranathara, which is also called Maklu 4, which is where Fing Feng Foom's from. Uh, after taking over a third of China, the Mandarin realized he was tricked. Then, after realizing he was tricked, he then joins War Machine and Iron Man to take down the rest of the dragons from apparent annihilation in China, but then gives back the 1/3 of China.
Hmm.
I love them and hate them.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's great. It's I both love and hate the trope that everything fantastical is just an alien. That's in so much media.
Did you know that
Eric Gygax is
Jesus
responsible
Christ
for that.
himself was actually was actually an
JoJo?
alien emissary
This
from outer
this isn't the
space.
history.
Would
This
explain why
isn't the
he's
history
white.
channel. We're not interested in history here.
It would explain why
Any
he was
deity
white.
in any mythology is just aliens.
Eh.
It would explain why he's white in all those depictions of
The correct default setting.
him.
Ooh, spicy, aren't we?
Mm.
This is why
Said it,
Rooney
not
is
me.
getting canceled.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind
This
if
is
you
why
do
funny.
Rooney is
cancel on my
getting
stream.
canceled.
Yeah, clip and watch this part, Twitter.
Yeah, no, it's all ironic. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
I'm sure there will be many.
It's
There will
all
be
ironic.
many.
Wink, wink.
I'm sure in the Twitch longer that ends your career, they'll make sure to use this as a reference.
Don't worry, I'm a minority. They can't cancel me.
Oh,
That's
wow.
true.
The ultimate
so
counter.
Yeah, Santa Claus is an Omega level mutant. Santa Claus is a super mutant that delivers all the good people on Earth presents. It's very funny. It's very silly.
Santa
I know you said
canonically
super
exists.
mutant as like that's what he actually is, but I just pictured like the super mutants from Fallout, where he's like green and vaguely
Yeah.
cannibalistic.
No. Not
Santa
That'd be
canonically
amazing.
exists. Santa canonically exists in DC and delivers coal through Darkseid's entire defensive line every year.
Yes, which is a fun little fact that I love. It's so stupid.
Fun fact. If you're naughty enough, you can get enough coal to sell it to massive corporations that need the coal to get tons and tons of money. Or you can use said coal to crush it and turn it into diamonds and then sell that and get even more money.
I was gonna say I don't know where the coal thing comes from. I feel like back in the day, coal would be useful to keep the house warm. Back when everything.
This isn't a punishment. Don't threaten me with a good time, Santa.
Mm-hmm. You need a lot of coal.
Hell
For
of
diamonds,
coal.
you would.
I mean, to sell it for an actual profit as well.
Yeah, you know what Santa should do? He just gives naughty children just a turd.
So, to answer your
No,
question,
because-
Shadow, the reason that the coal is a bad thing is not because coal itself is a bad thing. It's because where you put your stockings is under the chimney, and if you get a lump of coal in there, it basically means Santa skipped you.
Oh, I
I
see. Like he took a piece from the
Yep.
chimney. It's like, here you go. Oh,
Took
that's
some from the ground. Here
that's
you go, jerk off.
interesting, actually.
Right? It's not as
Oh,
funny as
yeah.
the original jack-o'-lanterns were turnips.
Yeah, they were, and they were horrifying.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to.
Because they were meant
great.
to scare off evil spirits. They weren't meant to be like a neat thing to carve.
Yeah.
Oh, now that you mention evil spirits, I have a question. Looking back into like the subject of the stream, is
They're kaiju?
is not the Demogorgon? Is the Mind Flayer a kaiju?
No.
No, because the Mind
No,
Flayer's
Mind
not
Flayers are
done.
not
The
kaiju.
Elder
Yes.
Brain
Actually,
would
hang
be
on,
a
hang on.
kaiju.
He is correct.
Yeah.
It is a kaiju. He's talking about the Mind Flayer from the Stranger Things TV show, not the one from the D&D book.
Oh.
That's why he said
Oh,
the
I
Mind
wouldn't-
Flayer.
I'm not even sure about that, just due to its height. It's not like the size of two people, isn't it? That's not that big.
The Demogorgon
so
is not. The Demogorgon's a
the-
smaller one. The Mind Flayer is like that big thing that's walking around with tentacles in like season 3, is it?
No, it's season
Season-
2.
It's just the big thing in the background now you see looming over. You see it on the poster.
Yeah, no,
of
that
X
would be
movies.
that would be
Yeah,
that
that'd be a
is
kaiju.
very much a kaiju. That's definitely a kaiju. Holy shit.
One of my favorite ironically favorite kaiju movies would be Cloverfield.
Based.
I've never seen Cloverfield, but I've heard
Really?
many people say it's actually very good. Yeah, I've never seen
It
it.
actually
Watch it.
is really good. It's filmed like from a like a found
First-person
film
POV?
perspective.
Mm.
Oh, I think I've heard of it. I think I've seen some like clips of it here and there.
Cloverfield that it
Do
boils
not
down
watch
to.
the sequels. Just watch the first movie.
Yeah, the sequels
Don't
get
watch
weird.
the sequel. Do not watch the show.
Yeah. The problem with the Cloverfield, the movie, is the characters suck, and like you're only there enjoying the premise, So if you get bored at the premise at all, you're just gonna have a bad time. Because all the characters are like the same person.
Yeah.
They're vaguely the same white dude who are all scared. And it's like that's it's great and all, but like I don't have any actual characters to relate to. And once the novelty of what the film is wears off, you get really sick and tired of these people really quick. Like that's the problem with it. But if you could stomach the the characters long enough, the gimmick is very neat and it's a very cool and creative way to tell this type of story. That's why if you ever watched the
I wouldn't
Robot
go
Chicken,
that far because there's a goth girl that explodes. There's the black woman that dies. There's a white man that also
There's the
dies.
fleas.
There's the cameraman that dies. Okay, you know what? I see your point.
So everyone dies.
a lot of people die, but that's not the problem. That's why if you ever look at the Robot Chicken sketch, which by the way, go to TV show, they're at the party and it's so great. I'm with my boyfriend, and the camera looks and it's just a bunch of vaguely looking the same dude. She's like, one of them is my boyfriend. All the characters in that movie are so much similar. It's annoying.
Yeah, I remember one. Actually, I guess it wouldn't relate here. It's just a horror movie I saw, and nothing, but it wasn't kaiju based. I don't think it was a very odd movie. Yeah, it was a movie. I doubt like most of you have seen it, called VHS 85.
Oh my gosh, I know VHS films.
Heard of it. Let me hold on.
The VHS films are
VHS
wild. You should go check
85?
out the original ones.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the original was pretty good. VHS 85 I have not seen. VHS
Yeah,
it came out last year.
Oh, what? Damn, that's recent as fuck.
85 is the new remake. But I used to watch the
not
original
bad.
ones.
I will say 85 was not bad.
I believe it. So on the subject of horror movies, I think that
kaiju.
Them, with an exclamation mark, definitely counts as a kaiju film. That's the movie with all the ants running around eating people. From like 57?
Would you count?
I was thinking of the wrong movie because there was this movie called They Them, and it was just a movie about a serial killer.
So question: would you count The Thing as a kaiju?
I don't think it's big enough.
The Thing. Yeah, I was gonna say the Thing can't
At
stuff
the end
on
of the movie,
you.
he gets big enough. He gets the size of a house.
I think that's still big enough. That's
Let
big,
me see.
but I still don't think
Are you
it's big
talking
enough.
about the Thing from, as in
That's
like
what
the
she
shape changer?
said.
We're talking about The Thing as in The Thing.
The
Thing
shape
from the
changer.
movie known as the
Yes.
it's called The
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But what
The
is
ice
it?
I forget the guy's name, but it's whoever's The Thing.
John Carpenter.
Ben Grimm.
John Thing.
John Thing. I was thinking Ben Grimm. I wanted to make that pun. If you know who Ben Grimm is.
Okay, so the
He's,
smallest
Grimm from-
kaiju is
Go ahead.
smallest kaiju can be anywhere between as 10 to 20 meters, so 30 to 60 feet tall.
What are you citing as
Roughly.
your source? Because that was a whole big thing we had at the beginning of the discussion. I don't know if you saw, Pip. By the way, yes, Donald Ferris, Eight-Legged Freaks definitely counts. That film fucked me up hard as a little kid.
I can't imagine kid being little. Creighton, I'm joking.
Either,
It was
man.
a joke.
Well,
Too powerful.
I have
you
a
can do
couple
it.
of sources.
A lot of things can fuck you
That
up
was a
as
powerful
kid.
movie then.
Bro, you want to know what fucked me up as a kid?
What was that?
The Thriller music video.
Really?
My next
got me
guess was
too
gonna
as a
be the
little kid.
uncle, but whatever.
That got me too. That
Right.
was spooky as heck.
Yeah, like literally
what-
it was Michael Jackson. No, it wasn't Michael Jackson.
It was Michael Jackson.
Okay, Michael Jackson literally gets eaten by zombies in that music video though. So I think it's pretty fair.
It's symbolic for his addiction to drugs that ate him alive and consumed him. It's very profound.
That sounds
Like
like
this-
some bullshit. I don't believe you.
On the subject of monsters and such, I think next week's discussion could be about SCP, unless they already did that.
Oh yeah.
There
Bro,
are
there's so many.
definitely kaiju that are classified as SCP. However, I'm
There's
not too
so many.
familiar.
There are
The
Yeah.
so many.
sun
There's
is an
SCP-3.
SCP.
Yeah,
The
there's a
sun is an
SCP.
SCP.
There's one SCP, which is literally two kaijus that continuously fight, and the winner determines the weather or pattern for an area.
That's actually pretty cool.
So
A pretty cool concept.
My
SCP is very cool as like a collaborative writing thing.
Oh yeah,
Um,
So awful.
but well, it's
but it's
awful.
so awful.
So it's weird. The reasons that make it good also make it awful. Like it can't SCP can't be any better than it currently is. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's great. I'm happy it exists, even if it's
oh yeah.
awful
It's like
sometimes.
an anthology at some point, because it's an anthology. I like it for the fact that it can be an anthology, but at the same time, like because it's an anthology, because so many people have written so many different SCPs, at some point you're gonna run into the issue. Well, what if someone decides to create an SCP that blows up the Earth, and all of existence is just wiped away?
Well,
Well,
the
then,
problem is that it has to get
They know they
approved
do that.
by
They
actual
they
So that
do that.
people, and
They
also
already
that
do
They
doesn't
do
that.
exist.
There's the Sun SCP, which will kill everything in its path whenever it does go. There's Doctor Bright, who's a fucking madman who can
So
talk to and use other SCP.
Well, the reason that he's able to do that is because he has nothing to really fear from.
Yeah, because he's immortal. Because he got put into an SCP that was a necklace that replicates your consciousness, and whoever puts the necklace on becomes the person that's trapped in the necklace.
Yeah.
mhm.
What I
And
meant was anyone else could do what he does. It's just that they don't because they fear for their lives. And he doesn't.
mhm.
So on the SCP subject, real quick, because we're going to move into there before Kaiju, I do want to eventually have a full SCP like podcast discussion because I feel like
Mhm.
SCP as the way it functions as a writing and like collaborative canon building is going to be the future for canonicity in a lot of media. But that's a future discussion. Going back to the kaiju, I want to talk about some fantasy kaiju real quick because we had a lot of discussions earlier where we couldn't decide if certain monsters were kaiju or yeah, not all fair. So a lot of the SCPs are dumb, but we'll cover that when we get to the SCP video one day. But a lot, like we were saying, a lot of the fantasy kaiju's that I briefly eliminated them because I wanted to just get a bunch of definitions and discussions going. But now I want to circle back to them real quick and talk about probably the most famous and important fantasy kaiju is the Tarrasque.
John, real quick, just so love what you said. Every last bit of it, love it. Could not understand a damn word.
Are we?
Yeah,
You-
no, you were roboting.
You
were
came
roboting.
for it as a
You were
robot. That's
roboting.
why
You were
that's-
roboting the entire time, and now you're
that's
fine.
Wow,
that's why
that's
you
fantastic.
that's why you saw that's why you
I
saw
think you might have just said a slur in Dalek.
Yeah, I was wondering
Well,
why
that's why you saw
everybody would say
Goat
Robo
left.
King.
That's why you saw Goat leave. That's why you saw Nebula leave. And that's why you saw me leave for a second too. Because I was
My
like, oh, is
internet
that?
was broken. Yeah.
I thought it was too.
Middly diddly
But
doodly.
At the
I'm
at
sorry,
the very end of
boys.
it, I did catch what you said. You
That
you
happened.
said that the something about the biggest fantasy kaiju would be the Tarrasque.
All right, so then I did want to. All right, I'm going to close out the discussion on SCPs. I want to have a whole other podcast on SCP because SCP is probably the most interesting development in fantasy and all sorts of collaborative and all sorts of world building in decades from a meta perspective. What SCP does and allows us to do is worth an entire podcast. And I wanted to move back into our earlier discussion where we were eliminating certain things from being able to be kaijus and how I eliminated fantasy stuff. And I want to, undo that real quick to talk about the Tarrasque, who's probably the most famous fantasy kaiju. I hope all that
I
came
thought
through
you
this
said
time.
giraffe, and I was thinking, oh wait, is a giraffe a kaiju? Because that's what I heard. I heard giraffe.
Thankfully, not this time.
Giraffes are not kaiju.
Oh man.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
No,
Did you
but
count-
it's funny because, like, why do giraffes exist but unicorns don't? I mean, what's more believable? A horse with a horn or a leopard moose camel with a 10-foot tall neck?
By the way, one of the possible
crazy.
reasons that unicorns were described the way they are is because, like, the thing is, think rhinoceros and try to explain a rhinoceros without using the word rhinoceros.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, unicorns are literally just rhinos, but
Hippo with a horn.
smaller.
You keep in mind. Okay, let me change that a bit. You're describing a rhinoceros to someone from Britain who has never been to or seen anything from all of what would it be, Southeast Asia, or no,
Africa?
yeah, all of Africa. How do you describe a rhino without using anything like that?
Your mother
Big
with a horn.
four-legged.
Solid.
So true.
But usually
Running
most people would
podcast
say
sober
4
repeat.
legs with a big horn, and in the UK and in England, most people would think, oh, 4 legs must look like a horse, which may have been one of the sources for the unicorn legend. Or
Just go
unicorn.
how they draw dogs, and you'll understand they have no fucking clue what anything looks like over there.
Yeah, absolutely not. Now,
They are
speaking of-
aliens.
speaking of lar-
They don't
speaking
even
of
know what a
large
stable
animals,
democracy looks like.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of large animals, would you count
I mean, not
the
like we
giant
do.
squid as a kaiju?
So I wouldn't. And because one of the necessary aspects for kaiju that we discussed that I think is super important is it needs to be outwardly destructive to civilization or hostile to like not just humanity but humanity essentially.
Like society. It has to be
Yeah.
societally effective.
We
Yeah.
live in a society.
Yes.
Correct.
Let's say,
And I
is
think-
the Joker a kaiju then?
No,
No,
it's not
the
big
Joker-
enough.
It's not big enough.
Cultural kaiju.
Joker's not big enough to
No,
be a
the
kaiju.
Joker would never be satisfied with just stepping on you. Don't be silly.
Oh, there was a time where he did become a kaiju and he ate the entirety of China and he made a racist joke about it.
Yeah.
What?
My
Yeah, that's the
high
thing. That's the thing. Look it up. Look up Joker eats China.
I'm
I
doing
don't
that
think
right
I
now.
will. I don't think I
Vor-
will. I'm gonna be honest.
Look, Mazurb is the one in charge of
Yeah.
war. Not me.
Okay, here we are.
There's a lot of things I plan to do with my life. That's not one of them. I'm gonna be honest.
Wow.
It's funny. It's funny, I swear.
I believe it's funny, but I also want to talk about the
I will
Tarrasque.
not be. I will not be repeating what he says. All right. Anyways, the Tarrasque.
Yeah, let's talk about the Tarrasque, the bestest boy, the biggest of the big.
That's pretty funny.
So the Tarrasque. The Tarrasque is, in my opinion, the most misunderstood creature in all of D&D because people don't seem to understand what the hell it is. It's actually a creature from French mythology. That
Yeah, I
really?
knew that.
yeah, it's a creature from French
I
mythology.
know that. Do you want to know why I know that? Because of Fate.
Ah, there you
I
go.
hate French.
So
French
yes,
people
it's a
aren't really
creature
like
from
that,
French
man.
mythology that Joan of Arc befriends or kills, depending on which story you get to. So it's kind of like a dragon that spits poison. And here's another thing that's going to blow your mind. Most historical and mythical dragons outside of England do not breathe fire. They spit and breathe poison, such as the ones from Beowulf. So
Yeah.
you got to remember that when you're reading these old stories, whenever they say a dragon spits poison, that's what we turned into them breathing fire.
Kid, you may have that wrong slightly. I
Oh?
looked up Tarrasque Saint. It should be Saint Martha was able to tame the Tarrasque.
Okay, I know Joan of Arc's
Yeah,
related to it at some
not
point,
Joan of
too.
Arc. No, Joan of Arc was a different thing.
Maybe she killed it.
Maybe one of the
I
myths
don't-
had her killing it then.
Mm.
But yeah, the Tarrasque was killed by one saint and befriended by another. I know. and depending on which story, because there's also like a Tarrasque that's a very specific one. Like it's weird. Again, the Tarrasque is one of those myths and stories that I will cover eventually on my history of, and he's definitely getting his own video. Even if there's not enough information to warrant it, I think that I just to satisfy his own ego.
I don't think Joan of Arc
Okay.
ever encounters the Tarrasque ever.
Really, I'll have to look into that and
Joan of Arc
verify it.
was a real person though, weren't they?
Yes, she was, but her
I
life
mean,
was
real
heavily
people.
mythologized.
Yeah, real people do mythological things all the time,
I guess.
like cutting an apple tree.
Yeah, like the entirety of the Tarrasque Wikipedia page doesn't mention Joan of Arc at all.
Well, it's
Joan of
okay.
Arc.
We'll find out. What did you want to say though, Kid, about the Tarrasque being a kaiju?
I think
Was there anything?
well, I think it definitely qualifies as a kaiju because the monster is specifically highly destructive. He goes out of his way to like destroy things and wipe out humanity, and depending on which media you're looking into, like Pathfinder, for example, which Pathfinder is derivative of D&D, so don't worry, it's still tangentially related. The Tarrasque is more like a world event. It's like a natural disaster, which is how you would describe Godzilla. In fact, this is for you, Roni. You probably would like the Tarrasque more than most Godzilla iterations as a Godzilla iteration.
If you say so.
I promise you, you would.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
Tarrasque
if you've
does
seen
a
my
lot of.
if you've seen my other streams and other talks with sorry, other people, you'll probably understand where I stand with these kinds of topics. But you said it was French, right?
Yes.
Sorry, that's a deal breaker. I hate the French.
Well, don't worry
Just
because
kidding.
it has been completely co-opted and destroyed by D&D. Because the original Tarrasque is like a turtle almost with a lion's head. By the way, the thing I was thinking of is Time of Legends. That's the thing that has Joan of Arc fighting a Tarrasque.
I see.
So I was wrong about that. It was a core part of her mythos, but I see where my error came from. So I apologize for spreading this information. Yeah, Pathfinder knows D&D 3.75. Yeah, it really is.
You apologize for spreading misinformation about something that actually matters.
Yeah,
Never apologize for spreading misinformation.
I will always apologize because misinformation is wrong.
I've also heard various different lore things for what a Tarrasque is from. Have you guys heard that as well?
What do you mean? Like
what is the origin of the Tarrasque?
like inside of like a
D&D.
specific setting? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. There's all sorts of different ones.
Yeah.
Jurassic
the Tarrasque
Park.
has some cool powers. If we want to talk more about the Tarrasque, great example. You can't actually kill a Tarrasque unless you use a wish. It just falls back into the earth and regenerates. It's pretty much immune to most magic.
I'm also pretty sure wish does not kill it. It just puts it into a slumber.
Well, it falls into a slumber pretty much no matter what when you beat the shit out of it.
No, what I mean is if you don't use wish, it will regenerate like within a few minutes.
Oh, I see what you mean.
If you use wish, it'll be stuck there for like 100 years or something. And you just kick the stone down to whoever the fuck is next.
So it depends. It depends on like setting specific things. But yeah, usually the Tarrasque like falls asleep for a while. You can't actually kill it. Usually it can swallow people whole. It's the Tarrasque is kind of like a how most people
pictures
like
on the screen now, by the way, boys.
Excellent.
So the one on the left is the original Tarrasque that Saint you would say, was it Mary? You said Marthery? Would say, was it Nebula?
1 moment.
Saint Martha?
Martha. Yes.
Yeah, so the one on the left here, this is actually a picture of Saint Martha taming the Tarrasque, and the one on the right is the 5th edition Monster Manual Tarrasque. You might notice he's gotten a bit of a glow up.
Yeah.
This
This
is
is what I
tiny,
was. This is what I was saying when I was saying that this Tarrasque is completely different. The
Oh,
Tarrasque originally
absolutely.
could spit like poison sometimes. The Tarrasque in D&D doesn't even have a breath attack. It
Yep.
go ahead.
It has no range profile whatsoever, so
Mm.
an Aarakocra level, so a bunch of level 1 Aarakocra with bows would be able to beat it eventually.
Eventually, yes.
I mean, assuming they could do any damage, which they can't.
True.
Also, I mean, assuming they can stay in the air long enough. The whole thing with the Tarrasque mechanically is that it's not really a fight you can dumb your way through. You're not outbeating it. That's kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no,
It
absolutely
can health
not.
regenerate faster than you can damage it. It can basically do everything it needs to kick your butt short of flying. It can do all these terrible, terrible
Huh.
moves that are just
It is
unstoppable.
a Tarrasque in some lore is labeled also the Mage Slayer.
Yep.
Love
Yeah,
that.
because
Its
wizards
its
can't do
stomach,
anything to it usually.
its stomach. Outside of it, wizard can do some damage. It has some magical resistance stuff like that.
It
Inside,
has.
once you get swallowed, it is an anti-magic field in its own stomach.
I think that also depends on interpretation.
There's so
Yeah,
many
because the
different
In the
types of
5e1 does not
3.5
have such a
version.
profile.
In the 3.5 version it did.
In 5e, all spells that require an attack, or a line, or a magic missile, you roll a d6. 1 through 5, the Tarrasque is unaffected. On a 6, the Tarrasque is still unaffected, and it's reflected back at you.
That's funny. Let's go over. I mean, do we want to go over the 5e version or the 3.5, or do we want to compare and contrast?
We can compare and
Remember,
contrast. I got the lore page right here of the Forgotten Realm for version 1 through 5 of the Tarrasque.
well, sounds like we're starting there.
Mhm.
Page. Take it away, Pip.
So let's see here. Quick little side note: would you also count the purple worm as a kaiju?
Probably it's big enough.
Yeah.
Seek
It's
out
a
civilization
gargantuan.
though.
No, they don't seek out civilization, but they are troublesome for Drow and Duergar who live in the Underdark because all it does is it burrows, and if it finds anybody there to snack on, it's gonna snack on them.
Right, but it's not like trying to destroy civilizations, which is what the kaiju do, and even
No,
the Tarrasque does.
it's just constantly digging tunnels in the Underdark.
I mean, I'd argue that there are quite a few kaiju that don't try to actively destroy civilizations, such as King Kong. I don't think that is a required trait of kaiju.
It feels like the
So
destruction of cities is necessary. Even King Kong, screwed with the city, and
Godzilla isn't really outwardly intentionally destructive.
Depends on the version.
Yeah.
depends on the version of Godzilla. If you go off the newer versions of like from Godzilla X Con and everything, it's just a fight to see who's strongest. If something gets damaged, something gets damaged. If you go off of
Yeah.
Shin Godzilla, that was for just causing damage and everything. Godzilla -1 was just for causing damage and everything.
Yeah, I don't think that uh intentionally destructive is a requirement. I think that it is a big part of a lot of them, though. But like, definitely not King Kong. King Kong is not intentionally destructive.
the purple worm.
Oh, I would definitely still consider it a kaiju.
100%.
It's still like, I think rather than outwardly destructive, intentionally destructive, presence is a threat to
It is a
civilization.
huge threat.
Because
Also,
like,
no one's
oh
ever.
yeah, like Kong isn't intentionally going out of his way to destroy anything, but if
But
he's
he can be a
somewhere,
threat.
that somewhere's not having a good fucking time, and he will be a cause of that not a good time.
And also, with the purple worm, no one's ever seen the full length of the purple worm. The head of it is about as big as a Tarrasque head, or maybe even a little bit wider. No one's seen the full length of the body.
Tarrasque spaghetti.
I thought purple worms were a type of creature, not an individual creature.
They
It
are a
is
type
an
of creature.
individual. It's a type of creature. There's multiple of them, but they're very rare to encounter. If you ever play in the Underdark in a campaign, usually you may feel the tremors of nearby purple worms digging, which is most likely just one purple worm.
I see.
It is very
Question.
rare to encounter one. Go on. Not impossible.
Yeah. I have a question. Is Shai Hulud a kaiju?
Shai Hulud, spell that for me.
Shai Hulud, Hulud, the sandworm of Dune. That's the Fremen
Oh,
name,
yeah.
Shai Hulud.
Yes.
Oh, and yeah, sandworms are definitely kaiju.
You say Shai Hulud. I put in literally what you said. You want to know what comes up on the
Well, I
right of
guess
my
they
browser?
can't
A rock
step on
band.
you.
Yup.
Do you need feet to step on people as a kaiju? Do kaiju need feet?
No.
Kaiju don't need
But
feet.
as I said, they just need to be a creature that can easily cause destruction just by their presence, basically.
Well, that's the
They
thing. They
definitely
can't
fit
really
that.
cause a lot of destruction because there's nothing to destroy in Arrakis.
I
Well,
think the
besides
potential
the
qualifies it, though.
Yeah, they definitely have the potential to still.
Would you count a
Hmm.
great
Like, if you made a
Ozaru as
city in
kaiju?
Arrakis, that city could easily get absolutely annihilated by one of these things.
Hell, the great Ozaru are technically kaiju. They just have a human
I
form.
think we need to have a
Called
written down
Saiyans.
definition of kaiju. I think we need to, not literally right now on the podcast. I think we need to write down classifications of kaiju because there's just way too many factors. This word doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
No
Let's
one
see,
can
what?
agree
During
on
my
anything.
research.
yeah, that's what I was gonna bring out as well too.
It's like
the
saying,
Great
all right,
Ozaru.
guys, what qualifies as a creature? Or what qualifies as a monster? Like, it's just like a slight subcategory of either of those things.
But
A
even
A
so-
creature is a created being.
like
Here,
you can do more. Like a monster is usually something horrific. It's something unnatural usually, and in
here I
some
have
worlds,
the
monsters are natural. So you're right. It is kind of a little bit of this, little bit of that. Are elephants monsters in some cultures? Sure, but we should still probably have a written definition, at least for ourselves going
Yeah.
forward, because otherwise there's just no point.
Well, I can read this little snippet for you of what they define as kaiju in for Japanese and the word kaiju. Kaiju is a Japanese word that translates to strange beast or monster and can refer to large creatures or a genre of media that includes them. Kaiju are often depicted as pre uh pre fucking Christ, this word, preternatural beings with divine powers and can be antagonistic, neutral, or even heroic. Antagonistic, sorry.
That was at the beginning of the show. That was the website. It's probably from Wikipedia. That's where we were citing when I was saying that this is a definition I don't like of kaiju because it covers. It's a bit too broad, and it has some interesting like ramifications.
Like anything is basically a kaiju with that definition.
Yeah.
Your mom can be a kaiju with that definition. You get it? You happy? I did that for you, Rooney. You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, there's kaiju and then there's daikaiju. If we're just talking like the term kaiju, everything's a kaiju if it's a monster. But only few of them, or only a certain selection, are daikaiju, which are like Godzilla and his bunch of the big old monsters with godly powers, stuff like that. A kaiju would just be like, say, Mothra.
Wait, hold on, because the Daikaiju classification is used in Kaiju number 8 to refer to the numbered Kaijus.
Yes, because of their total attack power, scaling them on par with a daikaiju.
This definition is so meaningless. The more I
Yes,
hear
it
the
is.
more it doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't it suck?
Like,
This is
yeah.
This is why it takes me 7 months to do any fucking videos because I have to spend hours looking for people like nerds arguing about this, and there's no scholarly or scholastic debates on any of this stuff, and it's all just people saying like, "Oh yeah, well elves are elves are elves are elves." So it's like, well, that's useless to me.
And it's okay to have a different level. Like, if you're talking about elves, right? It's okay if you want to say elves are just human with pointy ears. Like you said in the beginning of the podcast, that's lame. That's not an elf to me. But if you want to start there and then build up the definition, that's fine. But I don't. The problem is there's not a lot of people building up the definition.
This is why if you can mean so many things, you end up meaning nothing. By the way, I made a video about that.
Oh, true.
I'll go check it out on Mr. Rooney's channel. He is dying later today.
Yeah. And getting canceled.
Yeah,
Okay, so back to the Tarrasque though.
yeah, the
So
Tarrasque.
here's the big deal. I'm just going to go off of what I remember of the 3.5 version.
Do
Then
it.
let GG or Nebula rather go over the 5e version, and then Pip can go over the lore. So in 3.5, the Tarrasque is the biggest sized possible. It's gargantuan. Its challenge rating, I believe, is 30. It's considered like an epic creature. It
Yes.
doesn't have any spell resistance. Instead, it's just immune to any line, ray, magic missile, target effect. Any spell that affects it directly, it's just immune to, and you have to roll a percentile die on 30% or less, it gets reflected at you. On top of that, its stomach is an anti-magic zone, has regeneration, which means that you can't actually hurt it. All damage you deal to it is non-lethal, heals 10 HP a turn, and if you don't use a wish spell to wish it to like go to sleep for however long that lasts,
I think it
it will
was
just
actually
get back
death
up.
on there.
Okay, maybe it does kill it. Either way, though, it will just sink back into the ground if you don't properly slay it, and I'll just wake up again eventually and go on another killing spree. I think it had like augmented crits and some type of like really, really powerful attack, but it doesn't really have like super like powerful moves. It's just incredibly resistant and incredibly deadly.
Mhm.
And the idea of, throwing this at your players and telling them to deal with it is it requires players to usually think outside of the box. Normally, when you like throw this at a party, it's because they're like level 20 and you want some cool way to end the campaign. And the methods of killing it, if you've like seen any old stories of parties beating it back in the 3.5 days, they're all insane. They're things like, well, disintegrate can't disintegrate it, but if we get 15 scrolls of disintegrate and disintegrate the ground around it and build a giant pit, and then we cover it with water by having like 50 clerics cast create water, and then we just find a way to force it to stay down there until it eventually drowns, which will take like a super duper long time, we can kill it. And people, just the fun of it was coming up with just like insane methods that could actually harm it.
Hmm. All right. Now, all good now? 5e time?
Yeah, five. How does it work in
All right,
the
welcome to 5e.
fifth edition?
This is the Diet Tarrasque. Not
Oh,
really even kidding. So it has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. And it has the reflective carapace that I mentioned before. Magic missile, targeted line spells, or spells that require ranged attack roll. It either is unaffected or it's unaffected and it reflects. It has a lot of attacks that are very high damage. Its lowest average damage is 24. Um, uh, and it has a force auto grapple with its bite. It has a frightful presence where if you're within 120 feet and you make a whiz save or just be scared out of your mind.
oh yeah, the 3.5
Um,
has that. I forgot to mention that.
it can swallow anything that's large size or less, and if you are
Oh,
stuck
Sam.
inside of it, you take 16d6 acid damage from its stomach acid. If you deal 60 damage to it in a single turn, it needs to make a DC 20 con save, or regurgitate swallowed creatures. If it passes that save, you're just continuously fucked. And it has legendary actions. Now for its defensive profile. It has 25 AC, 676 HP. It has immunity to fire, poison, and non-magical weapons. It's immune to being charmed, frightened, paralyzed, or poisoned. And that's it. That's fucking it. It has no regeneration anymore. You can kill it with just a magic bow, or flying around as an Aarakocra. It's not even you'll eventually kill it through its regeneration. No, it has no regeneration. It doesn't even have anything to get it back up after it dies. It is the Diet Tarrasque. They were like, we could give it all the cool stuff that it had in 3.5 that made it interesting. Or it could be a gigantic beat stick that you could just kill.
I wonder if there's a Pathfinder version.
It's awesome.
Okay, let's look at Pathfinder, because Pathfinder has
Did you want to read the lore since he pulled that up?
yes.
All right.
So I'll go for just a straight lore of it because the lore just encompasses everything here. There is no version on the lore. So do you want to start with the history, description, behavior, abilities?
Your time to start, whatever you want to read it, buddy.
Let's start with the history here. I'll just go. I'll read verbatim each paragraph, and then we can discuss each one from there. So, the history of Tarrasque was a controversial one. Most persons were wholly unaware of Tarrasque's existence, and those that did know of it were unsure about its origins, which they summarized to be anything from its actual creation to it being a weapon of an ancient and evil cabal of wizards. Most dismiss these theories, however, as unproven musings. More important was that Trask rarely left evidence or witnesses. So dangerous was its nature. Some sages argued that Tarrasque was created by the primordials as a weapon of destruction during the dawn of war, with the purpose of undoing the stability installed in the world by the gods, so the primordials could remake it. Fortunately, the primordials created only one Tarrasque. Another theory was that Tarrasque was but one specimen of an entire population of creatures living on the planet Falx, Falx, if you're curious about spelling, which was located somewhere in another celestial sphere. Falx had several hundred creatures that were either the same species as the Tarrasque of Toril, or else an unfortunate example of convergent evolution. According to this view, Toril's Tarrasque had simply been transported or summoned from from Flax in ancient past.
Toral, by the way, is the name of the planet that the Forgotten Realms takes place.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I fiddled in one of my campaigns. I fiddled with the Forgotten Realms, and it's pretty fun.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to Actually Good Tarrasque, Pathfinder Edition.
Pathfinder Tarrasque is the best version I've ever seen.
Yeah. So first things first, it has a ranged attack. Specifically, it shoots 6 spines that hit with plus 25 and do 2d10 plus 15 damage. It will fuck you up if you're anywhere close to it. It has a 120-foot range increment. It can yeet that bitch 600 feet with like a minus 10. So still plus 15 to hit. You're not running.
It's
Nice.
immune
You're dead.
to everything unique, by the way. It's immune to ability damage, which the other ones were not. The other ones are immune to magic and have such high, like, fort stats that, poison isn't going to work. But this one just doesn't care about ability damage. Bleed, energy drain, diseases, anything mind affecting, anything permanent, petrification. Has 36 spell resistance, which is pretty hard to get through, but you can.
It has
Has
regen 40.
40 regen, yep. It has
that.
powerful jump or leap, so we can actually jump into the air and hit things now.
Yep. It's regen. The way to kill it remains as is yet to be discovered.
Yeah, it's your GM gets to decide how it dies.
Yeah.
And if you reduce its HP to nothing, it gets back up in 3 rounds.
Yeah, which is 18 seconds.
Once per minute for 1 round, the Tarrasque can move at a speed of 150 feet. This also increases its acrobatic jump checks by plus 87.
No,
Fuck
powerful
that.
leap gives plus 24, so it's total plus 101.
It's also
And
now
that's
part
excluding its base stats and bonuses from like skill ranks. It
and
just
from
has plus
stats.
101. Yeah.
Another funny thing is, so Kaiju is a thing in Pathfinder, like it's its own separate thing.
So many
Tarask
cool
is not,
kaiju monsters.
but the Tarask isn't in that category. It gets its own special category with exactly 4 other monsters called Spawn of Divine Destruction, which is the name of my band, or it would be if I had one. And it has some great friends with it in the same category. They're all a lower CR, but they have great names like the End Singer, which is a giant, warty, pointed star winged monster, and the Monarch of Worm, which appears to be the the biggest version of a purple worm, the biggest version ever that can
Go ahead and put
cast
some pictures up on
disintegrate.
screen.
An earthquake. Is there a picture on Strantham? I don't see any pictures of these creatures. I just see the descriptions.
I'm telling kid to put some up on there.
Oh
Dang,
yeah,
Tom.
if there's some pictures of these, I don't think these things sound metal.
Oh, yeah, Pathfinder has pictures for everything because it's the best version of what D&D is by far. It bothers me
Yeah.
how D&D is not as good as Pathfinder.
Ooh. Would you count a Neolithid as a kaiju?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
I-
fair.
Yeah, I know what that is. That's definitely yes.
Kid, you know what a Neolithid is?
Busy trying to put kaijus up.
Real quick, Shadow, read the Fire Bleeder's description.
All right.
You may want to stop reading at some point.
All right, let me pull up Spawn of Destruction, Fire Bleeder. Like a living volcanic eruption, the sheer massiveness of the Titan defies all reason. Monstrously shaped in part like a giant, terrible centipede, and part like some primeval wingless dragon, this living holocaust is completely armored over in plates of angry obsidian sharp magma, 2 massive claw-like insectile scythes fear before the burning terror as it skitters forth in rapid bursts of motion, leaving only flames and barren earth smoldering in its wake. That's a great description for a monster.
Yeah, do note that this is official Paizo calling this thing, quote, a living holocaust.
Oh, you man. They had the best shit.
Yeah.
They do have good stuff. This thing also has a regen 40, by the way, and is also immune to like 90% of things. It's pretty great. Another great thing, are Monster Hunter monsters kaiju, or does it depend? Because some Monster
Depends on
Hunter
them.
monsters are big. Some Monster Hunter monsters are absolutely fucking massive.
Yeah, I think it very much depends. Like, I would say Odogaron is a kaiju, personally.
So, if you want to explain what that is,
It's like,
Nebula.
its height is like 1.5 times that of a hunter. Its length of a person. Its length is pretty long, but that's like to scale with it being like very dog-like in appearance.
Oh, those ones.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't consider those. I wouldn't even
Yeah.
consider most of the worms kaiju. Because there are some creatures, because I think in the fiction of Monster Hunter, a lot of those creatures are big, but they're not as big as like the Titans. For example,
Yeah, there are some smaller ones that I would definitely consider up there, like Uragon or whatever, the Thanos chin.
Thanos. I know what you're talking about. Those ones are also big. Those ones are big enough to step on you.
Yeah.
And they are massive creatures. But I think when you want to think like kaiju, you
Oh
want to
yeah,
think
of
about
course.
some of the Elder Dragons.
The
So Elder
Genmaron and
Dragons
yeah.
are classified. They're basically, well, I don't know how much people know,
There's
so we need to give
so
some
there are
context.
there are actually some smaller elder dragons.
Correct, and I'm not talking about Elder
Yeah.
Dragons as a whole. Elder Dragons just mean that they're kind of mythical. But for example, there's the Moron, which is basically a giant land shark. And to battle one of these
Land
giant
whale. It's a whale, not a shark.
it's a land whale, sure. And it has a giant horn like it's a unicorn, but it's more of the type that stabs and destroys cities. People, and there's also an aquatic version of it, so it is literally a whale. To fight these things, people have to go on boats. They have to use cannons to shoot at it. When it starts trying to attack the boat, hunters have to jump on and climb it and start smacking it. It's so big that you can mine chunks of it out.
All right, here you go. Here's Volinar the Endsinger. He's on screen. This is one of
What
those
an
things that
amazing
Pathfinder was talking about.
Oh,
What an
damn.
amazing monster. So fucking cool.
Yes. And then next, I'm going to put the next two boys on the screen at the same time. This is Zotani, the Fire Bleeder, and Chemnioist, the Monarch Worm. So these are your Tarrasque level threats, boys.
Mm-hmm.
These are
They
the
are not
children of
fucking
Rovagug,
around.
the divine monster of destruction,
I'm waiting for
the
it to show
rough
up on my.
beast. By the way, hello
Oh,
CQ.
those look
Welcome to
so
join us.
cool.
Nice.
Those are great. Hello.
Now, for
I
Mr.
like
Rooney,
the burning eye in its mouth.
right? It's horrific. I'm going to show some of the other kaijus that Pathfinder has had. As you can see, they really like the dinosaur theme for some of them. I think these are pretty cool. The scorpion's absolutely wicked looking. You go on stream, and then after you guys have seen them,
I like the two-headed one. That's great. I'm sure
Absolutely.
Lex hates scorpions. I'm sure he would be disgusted by looking at that creature.
disgusted looking at it from home. And now on screen, there should probably be the totally not Godzilla, and then this other cool dude. These both are also kaijus from Pathfinder.
Oh, that one dude's cool. He's probably a monk.
Yeah, imagine that, fighting a monk kaiju.
Fuck that.
That's
Dude
amazing.
will wreck your shit.
Dude will wreck your shit and then go on a gigantic diatribe about like why you should not have fought him. All the philosophical reasons.
Philosophy. Honestly, the first one looks like an upgraded version of Titanosaurus. I would definitely love to see that design in the Monsterverse if it ever gets good.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
know.
maybe the true good monsters were the friends we made along the way.
I think it's that time of night, chat. I have some unfortunate news
Oh,
that we're
yes.
going to probably have to start wrapping it up. I've got a live stream and a half to get to with Mr. Nebula here. Welcome to come join
Indeed.
us over on his Twitch. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed our little kaiju discussions. I would like to thank all the guests for coming on. Even though he unfortunately died horribly to Baby. Thank you for joining us earlier, Pag. I think that thank you for joining us, CQ. Even though you didn't say much, my friend. Thank you for joining us, Shadow. It's always a pleasure to have you, and you as well, Pip. Nebula, I would thank you, but
Absolutely.
I'm going to see you in about 4 minutes, so I'll be over there shortly.
Indeed.
And then I would like to thank.
I now have a chat box.
Actually, he's a real Twitch girl now, boys.
I hope that
Demand
it's
him to
well placed. We'll see.
Yep. Demand him to show his feet pics now. If I don't see you
Bathtub
recommending for his feet
stream
pics in
win.
chat, I'm going to ban some people.
When are we getting the bathtub stream?
Exactly. Come on, Nebula.
Hmm.
Why do you think I did all this work to get you monetized? Chip, let's go.
I'm still not monetized.
You're close though, right?
I need more people to watch my stream. Bully people to watch my stream more.
Yeah. I'm bullied so we can make him take a
I'll
bath.
put you on the background. How about that?
Yes, that literally helps.
Make sure you leave a comment if you do that, by the way, because they've started getting smart.
Of course.
But yes, and the star of the show tonight, my dear friend, Mr. Blackaroony, who's going to die horribly soon. Thank you for being on the show today, man.
You're welcome. And before you end things, I have a recommendation for everyone out there that I have been making since the dawn of time.
Uh-oh.
There is a comic book written by James Harren called Ultra Mega, which is based off of Ultraman. and I highly recommend it. Kid, I have some images up there in the chat. So Ultra Mega, there's something I really adore about Ultra Mega besides the style. It's the how the kaiju are depicted. For example, the kaijus are actually sentient and they can talk, they can communicate, you can reason with them. In the later issues, after issue 1, they get kind of goofy and funny, but it's not a story you're gonna need to like take serious or anything. It's just people having fun, like boys will be boys type having fun. But there are also some really interesting narrative devices used in Ultra Mega, and also some incredible panels that I think you would absolutely want to make them your wallpaper. But yeah, no, Ultra Mega is a comic that you should read, and issue 5 is coming out next month, I think, in August, after a 3-year hiatus. Yes, I said three because the comic came out in 2021. That comic is finally coming back after telling people that it was coming back, and people didn't believe me. King was one of them. King Candor was one of the people that did not believe me, and I was proven right that the
It's not out yet.
issue of
Don't
Ultra
count your
Mega.
ducks before they come home, buddy.
The cover art is already out. So if the
That
cover
don't
art is
mean
already out, that means
nothing
probably
in the world of comics.
well,
You
that's
know
just
this.
like your opinion, man. No, I don't actually. I don't. No, but yeah, James Harren did say that he was working on it, and the fruits of his labor are finally showing. But yeah, Ultra Mega.
Looks like it's a fun time.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
very
I
good.
do have a I do have a question though. Because the kaiju are sentient here and they can change sizes, and there are kaiju that are like human size and smaller than humans. Are they technically still kaiju, or are they just bullshitting?
I think someone in chat said there was a specific term for people turning into kaiju-sized things and punching monsters. So they would be whatever that was. I don't remember. It was a while ago, though.
I'm pretty sure we agree that they were kaiju based on AOT. The kaiju number 8 thing was human sized.
Die kaiju.
Sounds like Kaiju. That sounds like that was the word you used.
Yep,
Yeah.
Daikaiju.
Usual. Thank you all for being with us today. I look forward to hosting another fun live stream next week. Look forward to the video coming out soon. And I will talk to all of you kids later. Thank you and have a great